Nupur Chawla, teaching English literature at Maitri College, Delhi University, and today's lecture is part of the series on the English essay, and it is titled Somerset Maugham, the Essayist. Now, you see, today's lecture is particularly of some slight different interest because while we do discuss, yet another essayist today, but at the same time, this also, marks kind of the end of the ongoing lecture series on the English essay. So you would have noticed, that how we picked up essays from different centuries spanning, starting from the 18th century up until the 20th century. So Somerset Maugham that we are discussing today is a 20th century writer, essayist, novelist, and a playwright. So, just to put all the points together, whatever we've been discussing so far in this lecture series, foremost is that, how this genre then stood out as one that may not have, gotten the center stage or gotten to the center stage as much as the other genres such as the novel form, the short story, poetry or the plays. But in this lecture series we understood that how equally important these essays were, and the way they the role that they play in acquainting us with the ideas of the age, the times, how the authors also experimented with this form, and most importantly how this form became one of the very significant means for us to understand the society of any given time. Right, as we had discussed in our initial lectures as well, that through the essay the author would kind of formulate a satire on the story, and when he satirizes the people or the times, through that we understand that what were the challenges, what were the follies, what were the shortcomings of a given group of people, or what were the value systems, who were the kind of people that lived at a particular point of time. So that was one of the quite a defining feature of this form, that how it brought us very, very close to the lived reality. It brought us very close to the actual people, and their lives and their experience at a given point of time. So I will not go over the the characteristic features and how this form also developed, because all of this has been discussed in the series, but this is just to kind of bring home the point of how this genre continues to be very significant, which came into being around the 18th century. And we also saw that how this form of expression also developed over time, right? And starting from 18th and up until the 20th century, and of course even later, newer experiments were also done with this style of writing as well. Right. So today we are going to discuss, Somerset Maugham, who also, I'm sure that those of us who are associated with literature would have come across Maugham and his reference in various contexts, in particular in the context of novels and short stories, because that's what he was very, very popularly known for. But as we've been discussing, that all these writers and poets and playwrights have also tried their hand at writing non-fiction or the essays, and Maugham is another such writer, right? So if we understand a bit about the author's background, now Maugham was born in 1874 Paris, right, and he died in the mid of the 20th century or slightly later 20th century, that is in 1965 in Nice. So we see that how geographically speaking, Maugham was a part, he spent a major part in of his life in Paris. but he was an English novelist. He was a playwright and a short story writer, and as I just now said, an essayist as well, right? So his work actually has a simple style, and it displays, he displays an astute understanding of human nature. You see, be it his novels, short fiction, or for that matter, even the essays or the non-fiction that he writes, you notice his, you notice Maugham making some very insightful observations about, human nature, right? Along with, of course, the other themes or the other concerns which also, are there in his writings. So as I just now said, that he spent or he was born in Paris, which is France, and also died there. Now you see, he attended the school in France his initial years, but then thereafter he moved to England, right? And after that he also went to Germany for further studies. And if you read up a bit more about this author, you will understand that how he studied medicine, but he never practiced medicine, right? The moment he finished his education, his higher education, he got down to writing. So, that's what we see, that how literature then is not just restricted to people who are formally trained in it. Creative writing is not just restricted to those who are formally trained in it, but you just need to have an eye for the life around. You need to have that observation, and of course, a passion to tell stories. Now, you see, his very first novel came out in 1897, which is the end of the 19th century, and it's called Lisa of Lambeth. And this novel studied the life in the slums, and it received quite a lot of attention as well. But you see, it was as a playwright that he first gained popularity, and by 1908 he had already witnessed 4 plays that were staged in London, right? So what we understand therefore is that how he was an incredibly prolific writer as well. Okay, beginning with the novel in the late 19th century, but he very quickly also experimented with theatre as well. And having written his last play in 1933, thereafter he focused completely on writing novels and short stories. So and that's the reason why we know him primarily as the author of fiction, while also accessing some of his plays as well. Now you see, another very important aspect of Somerset Maugham and his experience was that during the First World War, Maugham worked for the British Secret Service, right? So he had an immense exposure to, an immense experience of espionage during the First World War. Now you see, as we've always done this, that we've always looked at where an author comes from, what did he do in his life, and so what is the importance of discussing all of this? Because you see, it tells us that what all events or what all moments in his life actually shaped that a person's sensibility, because that sensibility then we see reflected in the writings. You see, because no writer is writing in a vacuum, right? Even as the historical events around the author impact what he or she writes, but at the same time, the particular details of his or her life also play a major part in defining the works of the authors. So you will notice, as we go ahead in our discussion today, that how his role during the First World War as a part of the British Secret Service also somewhere had quite a decisive impact on his writing eventually as well, right? And in fact, if you particularly read his stories that were published in 1920s, at that point of time, you will notice that how his fiction really reflected his experiences in the espionage, right? So, along with the first novel, that was Lisa of Lambeth, he also wrote opinion pieces, non-fictional and autobiographical work, and letters in magazines, right? So, as I just now said, that he is incredibly prolific writer. Okay, and now along with that, he also edited some of the celebrated 19th century texts as well, such as David Copperfield, very famous, right, by Charles Dickens, written in 1948, Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, Madame Bovary by the French writer Flaubert, War and Peace by the Russian Leo Tolstoy, among others. Now, you see, all these were very seminal, defining works of the 18th century realism, right? And we notice that Somerset Maugham edited, volumes of these novels of the 19th century. So once again, we get another point of reference, that how he as an author engaged closely with fiction of the 19th century, and of course would have also come in contact with the concept of realism as well, because if somebody is engaging with 19th century fiction, it's not possible for them to leave aside the conventions of realism as well. Okay, now after his initial novel that came in the towards the end of the 19th century, we also see him write various other novels, such as Of Human Bondage, which was written in 1915, just about a year after the beginning of the First World War, The Moon and Sixpence, written in 1919, The Painted Whale in 1925, Cakes and Ale in 1930, The Razor's Edge in 1944. And we say that how his short stories were also published in collections such as The Cassowary on a Tree in 1926 and The Mixture Before in 1940. So you see, you notice that how the dates are very, very close enough, right? And that's what gives us a sense that, he was a writer who wrote a lot, who thought a lot, and therefore he also produced a lot of works, right? And this is also one of the defining features of Somerset Maugham as an author. Now you see, particularly by the beginning of the 20th century, that is by 1914, Maugham had become famous and had 13 plays and 8 novels completed already. Now imagine, just 15 or 16 years from the time when he started writing, he had already become famous with 13 plays and 8 novels behind him, right? Now at that time he was, and of course that's the time when also the First World War broke out. So at the time he was too old to enlist when the war broke out. So therefore he served in France as a volunteer ambulance driver for the British Red Cross as well. Now you see, what do these details then tell us? That how he was very much in touch with the reality in the street. And you will notice this even reflected in his writings as well, right? So he is not writing from a silo. He is not, disconnected from the goings on. It's not that he was untouched by the reality of the times, but he was very much into the thick of things as part of the British Secret Service, as part of the British Red Cross, taking the injured to safety, etc. So that is where he actually derives a lot of his material for his writings from, right? So if we very broadly look at what are the decades and how he was writing and when he was writing, so from 1902 and till 1933, right, the initial part of the 20th century, he had already written and staged 32 plays, right? And between 1897 and 1962, he published 19 novels, 9 volumes of short stories and non-fiction books. So that is how vast the corpus of his writing is. right? So far we've of course looked at his plays, what how many he wrote, when he started writing. We've also had a sense of his writing of fiction, what he was doing around the time when the First World War broke out, etc. But now we come on, we move over to discussing his non-fiction, right? As I said that non-fiction was also a very, very important part of his writing. So it was in 1940s that he wrote this collection called Books in You. Then in 1946 came this work called A Writer's Notebook. Now you see, now what was a writer's notebook? Actually from 1892 until 1949, which is when it was published, Maugham kept a notebook. And so this work then is part autobiographical, part confessional. It's actually a collection of Maugham's observations, aspirations, and all that he would just jot down while going through life and its different moments. So that together was then compiled under the heading of A Writer's Notebook, right? So we see that the autobiographical element also is very, very importantly a part of Maugham's works as well. As we discuss the essay today, you will get a sense of what this actually means, because you will see this in practice at that point of time, right? And then of course we have the Vagrant Mood, which is a collection of 6 essays by the author, and and in fact we are going to pick up an essay from this particular collection to discuss, and in order to understand or actually just to get a view of Somerset Maugham as an essayist, right? Now the next thing that we discuss is that what are some of the, broadly stating, some of the features of his essays in particular, right? What are some of the defining characteristics of his essays? The first thing is that they were autobiographical. Like, I mean, not all of them, but well, a lot of them did have the autobiographical element to them. You see his experience in espionage, observations of contemporary reality, and of course his travels across the world also. All of these details, they form a part of his writings. Then second, we say that how his essays also come across as works of literary criticism. Why? Because he wrote on fellow writers and their works. He commented on their works. He critically analyzed, what was significant about a writer's work, or what was rather weak in his opinion. So you will notice, and in fact, as I just a while ago also told you, that there's an entire collection of his non-fiction works where he comments on the writers of the times and their works as well. And then the third thing that also characterizes his essays is a very simple style, right? You will notice that how he does not use very, very complicated language or a complicated form of expression. Instead, simplicity is what defines his style of writing, and particularly you see there's a focus on human nature. That is something that we constantly observe in all the different writings that we have of this particular author. And you will see, after all this discussion by him, this is Somerset Maugham on the screens, who was born in 1874, the second last decade of the 19th century, and was around till 1965, right? So In this particular lecture, we've looked at the background particularly of Somerset Maugham. We discussed that how he started writing as early as in the 1890s, and the first work was actually a work of fiction. That is, he wrote a novel, Lisa of Lambeth, and that novel actually depicted life in the rural regions, and this also then tells us about his politics and what is it that was really important to him as a writer or as a thinker, right? So he engaged with or he observed closely lives of the ones who were not privileged, right? Thereafter, we said that he also he wrote various other novels until 1960s, and he discussed at length about the contemporary reality over there. He edited the volumes of various 19th century novels, and then in later on after the novels, we see that how he also looked at he engaged with writing plays, and then there came a time when he gave up writing the plays and particularly focused just on fiction and non-fiction. Thereafter, we discussed that how his role during the First World War proved a very decisive influence on his works, and then we kind of discussed about some of his non-fiction works, even though he was incredibly prolific even there as well. But we saw that how he's written a collection of essays, he's written autobiographical accounts, he's also written he's also even published his personal notes as part of the writer's notebook, which is titled as the writer's notebook. And thereafter, we discussed that some of the defining features of his essays, that how they had an autobiographical element. Many of the essays were autobiographical. They play a very important part, or they contribute to literary criticism, because we notice him not only comment on the works of the novelists and their styles of writing, but he also comments on different genres as well. And that's what we're also going to discuss in the second part of the lecture today, and how his style was simple, and he was an astute observer of human nature, and we see these observations reflected in his works as well, right? So this brings to us Somerset Maugham, the literary personality who was writing in the late 19th and early 20th century, and an individual who experimented with different styles of writing: short stories, fiction, non-fiction, plays, right? So I'm sure that this has piqued your interest in the author, and in the next part of the lecture, we're going to take up an essay by Somerset Maugham and actually see that how he comes across as an essayist of great repute. Thank you.